It all began in March when my husband, David, 39, started behaving oddly about our finances. We've been married for 7 years, always managing our money through a joint account for household expenses and savings, while keeping separate accounts for personal spending. The first red flag appeared when I went to add funds to our yearly vacation savings and noticed the balance was shockingly low, $12,000 less than expected. When I confronted David, he became defensive, explaining he'd been sending money to his mother, Margaret, 68, for medical treatments not covered by insurance. Margaret lives 3 hours away, and though we're not particularly close, we've always had a decent relationship. Her history of health problems made his story plausible. I suggested visiting her, but David quickly dismissed the idea, claiming she was self-conscious about her condition and preferred no visitors. Over the next few months, more money vanished from our account. Each time I questioned him, David grew upset, insisting his mother's treatments weren't working and required new approaches. He'd say things like, "Do you want my mom to suffer?" whenever I pressed for details, making me feel guilty for doubting him. By August, another $30,000 had disappeared, funds we'd earmarked for a down payment on a new home. Growing increasingly worried, I sat David down to ask about his mother's health. His answers were vague, mentioning experimental therapies and alternative treatments without specifics. That night, while he slept, I checked our joint account's transaction history. The transfers weren't going to Margaret, but to an unfamiliar account. When I brought this up the next morning, David claimed he was sending the money to his brother, Samuel, who lived closer to their mom and was managing her medical expenses. This explanation didn't add up. David and Samuel rarely spoke, having fallen out years ago over a family dispute. Something felt off. I decided to investigate further. While David was at work, I searched his desk and found statements for a credit card I didn't know existed. He'd racked up $18,000 in debt, with charges for upscale restaurants, hotels, and luxury purchases from stores like Cartier. Unless Margaret was dining at 5-star venues while battling illness, this didn't make sense. In October, when David left his phone unlocked on the kitchen counter while showering, I hesitated. I'd never snooped before, but with nearly $60,000 of our savings gone, I needed answers. I opened his messages and found a conversation with someone labeled Work Contact JM.
David, $101 5 à today.
Should hit your account tomorrow.
JM, you're amazing, babe.
So excited for Friday, I've got something special planned.
David, the naive fool by every story.
Just mention mom's health, and she forks over cash.
JM, you're so clever, babe.
I love it. Your wife's such a pushover, lol. There were photos, too. JM wasn't his mother but a 22-year-old named Jessica, sending provocative selfies. Their messages, spanning nearly a year, revealed they'd been mocking me, planning trips with our money, and even discussing a condo they wanted to buy together, using our house savings. I wanted to confront David right then, but I knew I had to be strategic. He could deny everything and hide more assets if I acted impulsively. Instead, I called Margaret. We hadn't spoken in months, but she was delighted to hear from me. When I casually asked about her health, she said she was feeling fantastic, just back from a trip with friends. She was baffled when I mentioned medical treatments, saying she hadn't been sick. That's when I devised a plan. I told Margaret I wanted to surprise David for our anniversary, a small fib, and asked if she'd visit for the weekend. She agreed eagerly. For the next week, I acted as if everything was normal. David made 2 more transfers to his mom, totaling $3,000, each accompanied by a sob story about her worsening condition. I nodded along, assuring him we'd do whatever it took to help Margaret. On Friday, I took the day off but pretended to go to work. Instead, I picked Margaret up from the train station and brought her home. David wasn't expecting us until evening. We sat in the kitchen, and I laid out everything: the missing money, the girlfriend, the lies about her health. Margaret was furious, her anger palpable despite her age. We decided to confront David together when he got home. Around 4 p.m., I heard his car pull into the driveway. He walked in calling for me, surprised I was home early. Then he saw Margaret, perfectly healthy, sitting at the table with bank statements stacked in front of her. His face went white, and he gripped the wall to steady himself. I calmly asked how his mother's treatments were going and if the latest $3,000 transfer had helped. Margaret stood, demanding to know what treatments he meant, as she hadn't seen a doctor in months beyond a routine checkup. David's expression was almost worth the $60,000 he'd taken. Margaret pored over the statements, questioning charges for luxury hotels and high-end jewelry. Who were these for, David? Certainly not your dying mother.
David crumbled et confessed tous affaires, the money, everything.
He claimed it was a lapse in judgment, that he still loved me. Margaret wasn't having it. She declared he was no longer her son, that his father would be ashamed, and that she was cutting him out of her will immediately. I told David to leave. He pleaded, but I'd already packed a bag for him and called Samuel, who confirmed no money had been sent to him for Margaret. David hadn't spoken to him in over a year. David left that night. I changed the locks the next morning, moved the remaining joint account funds to my personal account, and froze our credit cards. I also contacted a divorce attorney. That was 3 days ago. Since then, David has texted me from Samuel's couch, where he's staying. His messages swing from remorseful to furious to desperate, claiming Jessica dumped him when the money stopped. I haven't replied, following my attorney's advice to document everything but not engage. I'm staying with my sister, Claire, while I plan my next steps. I keep replaying the months I believed David's lies, feeling guilty for questioning him, thinking I was helping save his mother's life while he and Jessica laughed at my gullibility. My attorney says we might recover some of the money, but it'll be a long fight. I'm meeting Margaret again tomorrow. She's determined to help me hold David accountable in the divorce. Here's my dilemma. David's family, except Margaret, is bombarding me with calls, urging me to hear him out, saying he deserves a chance to explain. Is there any explanation that could justify this? Should I even consider listening to him? And how do I move forward knowing the person I trusted most saw me as a fool to manipulate? Update. Thank you for the overwhelming support. Many of you asked about Margaret's reaction to David using her health as a cover for his affair. Her fury was something else, words that could make anyone blush. She's been calling daily, offering to testify in the divorce if needed. She even apologized, feeling responsible for raising such a dishonest son. I've been gathering evidence with my lawyer, and things are about to escalate. I'll update again soon. First update, a lot has unfolded since I confronted David with his very healthy mother. Margaret is a powerhouse. The day after, we met for lunch, and she brought a folder of David's childhood mementos, cards, photos, gifts. She shared stories about each, then tore them in half, saying no son of hers would treat his wife this way. She called David's father, Thomas, her ex-husband but still a friend, and put him on speaker to reveal everything. Thomas was stunned and offered to provide any documents needed for the divorce. Then Margaret dropped another bombshell. David had asked Thomas for money months ago, claiming it was for her medical bills. Thomas had sent $15,000, which I didn't know about, bringing the total stolen to $75,000. While we were at lunch, David called Margaret repeatedly. She answered on speaker, and he launched into a rehearsed apology about his mistake. Margaret cut him off, saying she'd already disinherited him and told him, "I may not be sick, but your actions make me ill. Don't contact me until you've repaid your wife." Back at Claire's, I found David in the driveway. He'd figured out I was staying there. He tried to block me, begging for a chance to explain. I refused, and Claire threatened to call the police. He left, shouting that I was overreacting and ruining our marriage over one slip-up. One slip-up, stealing $75,000 and having a year-long affair. The next day, I met with my attorney Sarah, who advised filing an emergency financial restraining order to stop David from hiding more assets. We uncovered more transactions. David had been siphoning money for longer than I thought, starting small and growing bolder. Sarah estimated the total at $85,000, including credit card debt. She also found 2 credit cards opened in my name, maxed out with charges for hotels and luxury purchases. We reported the fraud immediately. Returning to our house with Claire, we found it trashed. David had clearly been back, searching for something. My jewelry was gone, as were the house deed, my passport, and other documents from our safe. The police noted a prior call from David claiming I'd locked him out illegally. They said it was a civil matter since we're married, and recovering the items would be tough without proof he took them. How my stable marriage collapsed in weeks. I'll update after the hearing. Second update, the protective order hearing was Wednesday. I arrived with Sarah, and my dad texted that David was in the parking lot. Court security monitored him. David's lawyer, a polished man in a suit, tried to negotiate, but Sarah refused. In court, I detailed the theft, break-ins, and threats. The judge asked about violence. I noted David's intimidating behavior. His lawyer portrayed him as a loving husband who made one error, claiming he went to the cabin for upkeep and took storage items as marital property. I showed the judge David's texts calling me a naive fool and bank statements disproving his claim of returning money. The judge granted a 90-day protective order, barring David from contacting me except through lawyers and ordering him to return stolen items within 48 hours. That night, Jessica messaged, saying David was harassing her since their breakup. She wanted to meet. Jessica seemed nervous, not the confident woman I'd imagined. She reiterated David's lie about our separation and admitted staying after learning the truth because he convinced her I was the obstacle. She revealed David took out $42,000 in loans in our names, using fake emails, and put a deposit on a condo for her birthday. He'd pressured her for loans when I cut off funds, threatening to expose their affair to her conservative parents. She returned my grandmother's earrings, which David had given her as his heirlooms. I sent everything to Sarah, who added it to the divorce filings. Some storage items were returned, but not my mother's ring. Returning to the house with a police escort, I found it in worse condition, food, clothes, and alcohol stench everywhere. The wall safe was gone, removed and patched over. The officer noted it, but said it wasn't a crime since David co-owns the house. Samuel called, saying David, drunk, ranted about me ruining his life and mentioned insurance policies and leverage. Samuel, initially believing David's story, kicked him out after seeing his behavior and hearing about business associates helping hide assets. Sarah reported David's accounts were frozen, and his lawyer requested a settlement meeting, a shift from their earlier stance. Over the weekend, Emily texted that David was at her house, talking about fleeing town.
Y informait Sarah.
At Monday's meeting, David didn't show. His lawyer was uneasy, unable to reach him. Then police called. My apartment was destroyed, furniture slashed, naive fool written on the wall. I'm in a new hotel, terrified. Sarah's pushing for an expedited divorce, but recovery seems unlikely.
Y elle est l'update soon.
Final update. It's been 2 months since my last update. Events kept unfolding, delaying this post. After the apartment vandalism, police issued an alert for David. His car was found abandoned 40 miles away, with his wallet and phone inside. Emily called, saying David appeared at her house, disheveled, asking for money, then left angrily when questioned. A text from a burner phone, "Meet me at the lake park, 2 p.m., alone or I'm gone," led to a police-monitored meeting. David sat beside me, blaming everyone for his downfall, demanding $20,000 to sign divorce papers and leave. I refused, and when he grabbed me, officers arrested him. His backpack had my hotel's address, bank statements, and my mother's ring. At his bail hearing, the judge denied release due to his actions. The divorce was granted on fraud and adultery grounds, awarding me the house and cabin, with David ordered to repay everything. Recovery seems unlikely, as he spent most of it. His father, Thomas, gave me $25,000, feeling guilty for not seeing David's deceit sooner. I'm rebuilding, staying cautious, and grateful for support. The betrayal still stings, but I'm moving forward, one step at a time.